you know you're going to crash, but I still seem to be going back to it. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to GenTalks, our podcast where we discuss topics across generations. I'm Aisha, and I'm here with my dad, Dr. Javed Sheikh.
What a pleasure, Aisha, to be here.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule.
Well, thank you for accommodating me. You're a Gen Z person.
Well, today we're diving into a topic that's everywhere, whether you realize it or not: the dopamine dilemma. What if I told you that your phone isn't exactly the real problem, but your brain chemistry is? And trust me, it's not just social media. Dopamine shapes everything from how we think, to how we feel, to how we love. So if your attention span feels super fried, your motivation's low, or you get random dopamine crashes, today's episode is definitely for you. So, without further ado, let's get into what exactly is dopamine.
Well, first of all, let me say you chose just the right topic. We are all living in a dopamine world these days. Dopamine is a chemical or neurochemical because it belongs to brain. Technical term is neurotransmitter. So it is secreted from the brain and from what we call reward system. And then it connects to other parts of the brain. It is also called, in common language, pleasure hormone or pleasure neurotransmitter, even though it is associated in addition to reward system, memory, with overall movement, mood, multiple things. But long story short, it impacts one's mood, it impacts how one feels pleasure. And that's one of the reasons why it is becoming such a big issue these days.
So, on the topic of mood and how it's affecting us, would you like to elaborate a little bit more on how it's affecting our mental health?
Oh, okay. Well, so you asked a very good question. So this is going to be a long, involved answer. So be patient.
We're ready.
All right, good. So let's say dopamine is the primary neurotransmitter of reward and motivation. Okay. Without it, we really would not feel the motivation to do anything. However, as we get rewarded for any kind of behavior, now let's try to tie it to cell phone. We get used to looking at our emails, social media, what have you. And since there is no restriction on how many times you can take a look at it, you reward yourself by we have kind of an impulse to looking at the email or the latest social media message from your friend. You take a look at it, the tension is relieved, and you feel good for about 15, 20, 30 seconds. Yet, it's like having a hit of dopamine. It evaporates in a few seconds, at most in a few minutes, and you have the impulse again to take a look at it. So ever since these cell phones were introduced, really, it has transformed the culture, particularly with the kids, where the brains are still developing. So it has become a major issue because of that. Now, some people call it dopamine addiction. I'm careful in using the term because addiction is a very technical term. But I would say 90% of us are somewhere on our way to getting used to constant dopamine hits because of the cell phone.
I agree with you. I think personally, the reason why it's so important for us to talk about this is that we all have to understand that we are somewhere on this spectrum of, like the word that you use, addiction. And even I feel it if I'm not checking my social media, I'm checking what emails I'm getting from work, and it's right before I go to bed, it's right when I wake up in the morning. There doesn't seem to be this break. And the thing that scares me the most about this dopamine dilemma is that you know you're going to crash, but I still seem to be going back to it.
What happens in addiction, by the way, so again, when people are addicted, they have what we call compulsive behavior again and again and again with not much control of the behavior. So if you keep on doing this, you will be taking time away from other important issues. But you just cannot control yourself and it keeps on going. And not only that, in the extreme cases, you get so used to it that if somebody stops you, takes away your phone, you feel very, very uncomfortable. And that is a classic addiction. Yeah.
You do, and it's interesting because I feel a few years ago I'd feel comfortable going for a walk without my phone, and now I can't even think about leaving my phone in another room. I mean, when I can, I feel good, but I actually think that the only time I'm able to do that is if I'm with someone and I'm surrounded by something or I'm busy with something. But otherwise, I always have my phone on me, or a lot of people have Apple Watches on. So even if they don't have their phone in their pocket, they have their watch, which is notifying of them and getting those little dopamine hits.
And always connected,
Always
always
connected.
on. Yeah. Well, I think socialization is an important aspect in terms of how one can mitigate this kind of dopamine dilemma. And I'll get into that later on, maybe
Yes.
when we are discussing as to ways to helpfully and in a very healthy way taper this dilemma.
So thank you so much for elaborating on all of the micro behaviors and causes and effects. And I think we could sit here all day and go into different ones. But one area that I'd really like to go into particular is the role of social media, and in particular with how it kind of starts around the teenage age. I also think as a professional that works in the marketing field, whether it's my work with femtech, whether it's my work with my branding, it's really hard to get away from this addiction of likes. So whether it's a like on LinkedIn, on a professional post, or a like on social media such as Instagram, TikTok, or Twitter, you just feel so good when you're looking at that like. And I'm curious, I mean, you didn't really have this in the early part of your career. So what's your opinion on how we're dealing
We're
with
doing,
this?
yeah. So again, let's step back a little bit. The desire to be liked is universal. That's always been there. Unfortunately, with this technology, you get instant feedback, positive reinforcement, we call it in technical terms. So you're getting the likes in real time. That reinforces that kind of behavior. It's like a hit of dopamine, as we were saying earlier.
Yeah.
So you want to continue. The problem with that kind of thing is that once you continue, you would want to continue even with shorter intervals. Ultimately, gets to the point where you are not in control. It has taken over. And that's where it becomes painful and even pathological and self destructive.
Yeah. And I think the thing that I think about is that my generation in particular, we had a good sum of our life without social media, right? We did have Facebook, and yes, you would feel that kind of happiness and sadness when you would get likes, but it still was a little removed because it was on your desktop and then it was on your Blackberry and maybe on your iPhone. But now we're just constantly scrolling. If we're waiting for a doctor's appointment, you're scrolling. If you're in an Uber, you're scrolling. If you're on a plane and you have free Wi Fi, you're scrolling. And what are you looking for? You're giving likes and you're looking for the likes that you want. And there's not that sense of, I don't want to say sense of self, but it's really hard to have a set of principles that ground you, that remind you that you are a person that's separate from your social media um, personality that you've made or your brand, or even if you're just sharing it amongst your friends on a private account, it does get to you so much. And it's difficult to separate yourself from it.
But just the way that you're describing it, that tells me that you have a very good sense of self and you view this as a potential problem. So now the question is, what can be done? I mean, we have touched on the mechanism behind it. We can go deeper if you want, but I think it will get too technical. Put it this way: dopamine rewards pleasurable behavior. Dopamine also motivates people, gives them the desire to achieve goals. So we can use it to our own advantage because we know every one of us can produce dopamine in the brain. Why not produce it in a way that is healthier than what you're describing?
Okay, so while I'm sitting with a medical professional here, I thought it would be helpful to bring a study for us to discuss. So I came across this really interesting UCLA study called The Power of the Like in Adolescence, and it was published in the Psychological Sciences back in 2016. So it basically looked at how teens' brains react when they see photos on social media that get a lot of likes versus photos that didn't get too many likes. And so the researchers actually did an fMRI scan of these young people, and they found that when they saw photos that had more likes, their reward centers of their brain actually lit up. So these are the same areas that release dopamine when we experience pleasure or motivation. And I think about that, and it's scary. It's very jarring.
It is scary, and it's spot on. But that reward system has a couple of well-known areas, ventral striatum and nucleus accumbens, but those are the technical terms. The important thing is they are very deeply connected with a very large network in the brain. So they can impact other parts of the brain. After one gets a like and there's a dopamine rush, that can impact the thinking. That can also continue to reinforce that behavior. And it can impact movements. I mean, that's another thing. Uh, but that's more of on the pathological side. Dopamine, if it's less than normal, can actually inhibit movements, which is what gives rise to disorders like Parkinson's, etc. But let's get back to the reward system. So yes, it is as you described. In the brain, there's this constant rewarding going on by looking at the likes. And this needs to be replaced by a healthier behavior. And there are ways to do it, by the way.
Yes, which we will get into, I promise. But before we get into our solutions,
Yeah.
there's one more topic that I definitely want to check up on and bring up because I think the viewers really enjoy it. But it's dopamine when it comes to dating and dopamine when it comes to relationships, because we know that humans, we have to interact with each other.
Of course.
And what's your opinion on how this dopamine dilemma works with relationships? Because I have a lot of thoughts on what I've seen on social media.
Maybe you can tell me more because,
Sure.
yeah.
Yes. So I actually think that the thing with all of these apps is that it feels like a buffet, as we've spoken about in our previous podcast, where you have all these options to have a variety of connections, and the connections can be achieved at any time of the day with anyone all over the world. And even if you're in a steady, secure relationship, you always want to see what's on the other side. And even for people that are looking for friends, you have all of this variety, and there's this constant hit of dopamine that's waiting on the other side. And in sort of colloquial terms, we have something that's called a DM, which is a direct message. And so if someone wants to get to know someone, it's so simple. They can just send all of these DMs and it's their dopamine hit, and they don't have to think anything. They don't have to think twice, right? They send it and they get that hit if that person responds, and they just keep doing it. There's no sort of consequence, and there's all of these options. And so I find it interesting to see how can people really handle that emotion, because I think it would be remiss to act like it's not something that comes up in someone's psyche, but it's important for us to talk about it and kind of work through what to do if those feelings come up.
Okay, well, what you're describing is, unfortunately, this technology has really locked into some old evolutionary mechanisms, things which were developed had survival value. People, they lived in close-knit groups, and like and dislike was very important. You had to learn to get along with each other and band together to look at look after each other's safety. But now the same mechanism, which is now transported in a totally different setting, can be pathological, where total strangers can take advantage of it because it truly is a vulnerability without people recognizing it. So what you're describing is potentially it could be quite dangerous and definitely worrisome from what you're describing. Yeah.
Well, on a little bit of a lighter note, I thought it would be helpful for us to play a game of dopamine yay or dopamine nay. So, before we get into the more technical terms of actions to take to help the dopamine, we thought we'd have a little playful game. And you're going to either say this is good dopamine, so yay, or bad dopamine with nay. So, we're going to start that game. And after that, we'll get into the more serious solutions.
Okay. Looking forward to it. I like that.
Okay, so our first question: scrolling TikTok for an hour.
That's easy for me. It's definite nay for me.
It is a nay, even though secretly, if he wasn't here, I'd say yay. Okay. Going on a 20-minute walk.
Wonderful. Marvelous. Walking is a natural way to produce dopamine in doses that body can handle and makes you feel good.
Cooking a homemade meal instead of ordering from Dalabad.
Definitely a yay.
That's true. Finishing a challenging workout.
Definitely a yay.
Also yay. Refreshing Instagram likes every 5 minutes to see if more people have liked your photos.
Run for your life.
Run for your life is correct. Okay. Reading 10 pages of a book before bed.
It's a great way to go to sleep in putting yourself in a calm mood and relaxing your body. So, yeah.
And also, he is a bibliophile, so I would expect no less. Okay, calling a close friend to catch up at the end of the day.
That's a very nice thing to do. I mean, that's one of the things which is missing in modern society, really. Socialization is a very healthy aspect. So, yes, yay.
Yay. And practicing meditation for 10 minutes.
If you like meditation, I say yay. I personally cannot get into it. I've tried,
Yeah.
but that's my problem. But in general, as a matter of principle, I say yay.
So I'm a big supporter of meditation, and I say like double yay if I could. Checking work emails at midnight.
Well, it. Are you accusing me of something?
I'm just, this is my search.
The answer is nay, except, guilty as charged.
Yeah.
My answer is nay. It's not a good idea.
Definitely nay. Your phone should be on D&D. Do you know what D&D is?
No.
Do not disturb mode. It's one of the best things that the iPhone has.
Please show me tonight.
I will show you. So no more emails being checked. Okay. Posting a gym selfie right after your workout.
I would say nay, probably to that one also, except if you want to use that to inspire that kind of healthy behavior in some of the friends who are not working out.
Yes.
Who you're trying to inspire, then yay.
Yay. I am always pro gym selfie because why not? I mean,
yeah, why not?
Thank you. I thought he was going to say no, so I'm pleasantly surprised by this. Okay. Spending 3 hours making a TikTok versus spending 3 hours learning a new skill.
Just thinking about making TikTok 3 hours makes me depressed. So the answer is nay.
That's true. I guess we'll go yay for the spending 3 hours learning a new skill. Because
absolutely.
Yeah, that could be good.
Any new challenge and new skill, in fact, when you develop that or when you overcome any kind of challenge, you do get dopamine, but it is not a hit. It very gradually increases and stays stable. So it's good.
Okay, good. And last but not least, taking a weekend offline trip with no Wi-Fi.
Sounds heavenly.
Oh my God, I know.
Wonderful.
Say,
dopamine detox. Yay.
I'll say yay, even though secretly I'm saying nay. So we'll say that. Okay, so now that we've gone through all of the areas in which we think the dopamine dilemma shows up, what do you think are some constructive ways we can improve on our behaviors we can avoid, behaviors we can indulge in? Just give us the load.
Sure. If you indulge me for a while, because I might sound preachy in this one. I might.
You are allowed to be preachy because you have...
You know I'm not preachy, but I might sound it.
Yeah. No, you have the, what do you call it? You have the backing. And if the podcast bros can do it, you can do it. Trust me.
Got it. So I would say, interestingly enough, first of all, in the modern society, one of the issues, in addition to cell phones, the whole thing, is happening is that all the norms, generally accepted norms, are breaking down in the society in general. So it's a time of great stress. So on top of that, this new technology make the need for dopamine hits actually even more urgent. So now let's get back to what can we do constructively. Older societies, and I don't want to sound old, but there was a reason why there was wisdom in the societies to live simply. I'm not saying that we need to go back to Stone Age, but there are certain behaviors that we can adopt. Okay, well, why don't we start with sleep? I think going to bed, early to bed and early to rise has a lot of wisdom. Going to bed by 10 p.m. actually is a good idea. And of course, all the sleep experts tell you that if there are lights there, if you're looking at the blue light, meaning your computer screen time, for an hour or two before going to sleep, you're going to have a hard time. So that's one thing to keep in mind, definitely. Second is, the moment you wake up, after drinking a couple of glasses of water, absolutely essential, you really have to expose yourself to sunlight. I'm not meaning to say that you have to directly look into the sun, but let sun hit your eyes and you can look kind of sideways. Very important because it will bring your circadian rhythm, what we call a circadian rhythm, basically sleep wake cycle back to normal. So through the eyes, your brain would, with the light, sunlight, understand that this is time that new day has started. The dopamine, no, I mean, sorry, the melatonin needs to evaporate. The day has started. It's absolutely essential. In fact, if you do that, it will help you sleep better the following night. Then simple issues like eating healthy, and you were touching on that earlier. It's been shown again and again, if the foods are overall balanced, you do much better. If you are eating refined carbs, you get activated. They hit the dopamine and you start getting dopamine hits. Not a good idea. Okay. And exercise, you were saying earlier, I mean, exercise to me is truly the nature's blessing. It's a free medication that is given to all of us to make ourselves feel good, satiated, and overall in a calm uh, state of mind. Because what it does is it gives rise to serotonin. So, serotonin and dopamine are in some ways yin and yang. Serotonin makes you feel happy and calm. Dopamine, on the other hand, gives you pleasure with the edginess and need for more and more and more.
Mm-hmm. Kind of sounds like me when I'm eating too much pilau. I mean, I know it's gonna make me feel bad, but it's also it tastes good. I agree with everything you're saying. The complex carbs, that's a little, I need to work on that. It
Of
just,
course.
that you're so right that you feel that dopamine when you're having a nice carby sandwich or a lot of pasta. And I realize that I need to balance it out with fiber and protein to make myself feel good throughout the day.
It's okay. You don't have to feel bad about this one. We are not talking about perfection here. No
Yeah.
one has perfect behaviors, but we want to know what needs to be done. And then you can find ways to do it at your own timeline. How's that?
You also brought up exercise, which I think is a great idea. And I
Yep.
would take it one step further by saying that, trying to exercise in a group, it makes it feel really good because you're working towards a cause together. You make friends in your class,
Yep.
you find a nice instructor, there's a good playlist, you're all in this sort of communal goal.
Fantastic.
And I think that you then lose, you just kind of feel like it's not a to-do list, right? You're going to go and see your friends in the class and you're going to work on increasing your endurance, your muscle, and I guess a healthy way of getting dopamine.
Okay, well, this is very good for what you described. I actually don't do exercise, as you know, in group,
Yeah.
but this sounds even better. You are getting double the dose of overall happiness and healthy behavior.
Yes. Because I also think, I mean, certain people, obviously, I will be speaking on maybe like female experience, but sometimes people can feel intimidated to go and lift free weights on their own. And I think when they're around different people or if the room is dark, whatever it is, there's not that pressure to perform in a certain way. You just, you're in the flow of things. And then as time goes on, it just feels like second nature.
So, one thing about socialization, I mean, our brains evolved to continue to exist in groups. I mean, that's how they evolved because that was the only way people could survive. So, there is very deep, almost biological need to be around people. So, there needs to be some quantity of socialization. One of the problems with cell phones is that people, even when they are connecting with each other, it's not the same. So people are alone when they are supposedly together online, but they are not together actually. And this is one of the reasons, particularly in the US, where there have been annual surveys for the last, I think, 20 years or so. And year after year after year shows the loneliness keeps on increasing. I think it's at this time the latest figures are more than 60% of the people talking and complaining of loneliness, very conscious. And this is not those people who actually like their own company and they're reading or doing something. No, no, these are people who are just feeling lonely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting you bring that up because even you notice that if you're going out, let's just say you're to go get a cup of coffee or you're in a cafe, or even if we take it to the school setting, you're in the library and you're there, it's just not that likely anymore that you're going to connect with someone or even
Yeah.
chat with someone
Yeah.
because we are all so busy on our phones.
Yeah.
I think that the ability to socialize and that element of chatting with someone, there's so much, as we like to say, anxiety about it.
Yeah.
You're so socially
Yeah.
anxious that you're either gonna, this person's not gonna want to talk to you, you're gonna offend them, that you are more likely to be avoidant and then pull out your phone and text someone else because
And become lonely again.
yes, but you do it for the dopamine hit, which is so bad.
Yeah.
But
So very well said. Actually, that what reminds me is, I didn't say earlier that one of the not so good things uh, in the current society is this sense of community has broken down over the last 30 to 50 years. This was breaking down even before the cell phones came in. It just has been accelerated by the cell phone. So people used to know each other, and so they would say hello on the street or going somewhere in the supermarket, but that has gone out the window. So now with cell phones, the message is I'm very busy doing something very important. Touch me not, don't interrupt me, otherwise it's rude, that kind of thing. And that's a problem. Ultimately, we end up actually making ourselves more lonely and craving attention, which you get by likes and dislikes, which is not very healthy.
true. And it's interesting you bring up even, like the neighborhood concept. I think in modern urban living, when
Yeah.
a lot of people live in apartment buildings. I remember when I lived in an apartment building, the
Yeah.
first one I lived in, I didn't know any of my neighbors. I mean,
Yeah.
I was lucky that the second apartment I went to, I knew everyone on my floor, but there's so many people that they just have no idea who they
No.
live next to.
No.
And I mean, they don't have any community. It's
No
it's
community.
so sad.
It is very sad. That's why they're lonely.
You've spoken about how it affects people during adulthood and adolescence, but I think it would be really, really meaningful for us to dive into how it's affecting very young children because, now children are exposed to technology much earlier, whether it's in their leisure on iPads or whether it's in school settings on iPads.
So that actually is a question, an issue of major concern, and should be to the society. Kids are not small adults, particularly when it comes to brains. Their brains complete the development by around 25 or maybe a little bit later years of age. So when we're talking about kids getting exposed to cell phones and the kinds of behavior we're talking about, chances are they get impacted even more so than adults. I mean, it's hard for me to imagine, but must be a dopamine hit, which hits the vulnerable brain probably in more deleterious ways than it does the adult. So there is no question that this whole epidemic of ADHD, anxiety, and depression have at least something to do with this introduction of new technology, the cell phones, the social media, around 2010, 2012, that was the time. And these prevalence of these disorders has been increasing ever since, much more so in the last 5 years. So there truly is a direct correlation. It's not exact causation because we can't prove that, but it is enough to say most probably it is related to it.
So, for people that are watching and have young children, what do you think are some good suggestions and healthy activities that they can engage with their children or encourage their children to engage in?
For sure, there need to be rules of behavior, telephone detox, time out from the screens. All those things need to be implemented in home. I mean, it sounds draconian, but it honestly, for the safety of children, needs to be done. And some of the behaviors that we talked about, which are healthy, need to be indulged with parents, taking kids for a walk, go to the park, take them play dates together with their friends. Okay, make sure they sleep at night on time and eat healthy. Those are the kinds of things, and I think they'll make a very big difference. Having said that, I am also mindful that there's increasing stress in life. As I said, the normal modes of behavior seem to be breaking down. And the parents are under a lot of stress, particularly parents of young children. So at times, even though they know all of what I'm talking about, it might be hard for them to implement them. And my heart goes out to them. But I think they still need to do whatever they can to take care of their kids that way.
Okay, so I feel like we could sit here all day and I could probably ask you every single question, but I do want to be mindful of your
That's all
time.
right.
So thanks once again for taking the
Of
time.
course, no, thank you. Thank you. Such a pleasure to be talking to someone from Gen Z who's so insightful. So proud of you, Aisha.
Any closing thoughts you have before we sign off?
I say we recognize the challenges, and they are. We should look at it constructively and find every chance we get to recreate a healthier society, build one by one. And I think the best place to start, honestly, is at home with young kids and then build on that.
Sounds like a plan to me. If this episode made you realize how wired we've all become, I don't think you should feel bad because, like you very aptly said, we're all in it together. Our brains weren't really built for this constant noise, and most of us are just trying to balance it in a world that doesn't stop. So take a moment this week to check in with yourself and not your phone, and notice what actually makes you feel good, not just distracted or avoiding what you should really face. Because at the end of the day, managing dopamine isn't about quitting everything, it's about learning how to live intentionally again. If you like this episode, don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe. Share it with your friends, your families, and yes, even your aunties on their WhatsApp groups. Let's help everyone take back their dopamine one scroll at a time. Till then, please stay safe, and we'll be right here at GenTalks waiting to talk to you once again. We did it.
You got it.